Right, so as standard, the 75 turbo has this hose. That joins at the top here. That one goes off to the turbo there. Obviously they go off to the top rad hose either side, and that goes down to the pressure relief thermostat. Now, on a Metro, obviously, the return goes up here to the header tank from the top hose. So, I've bought 2 of these. Metal ones. So my plan is cut them both off at this ridge and back them. So effectively we've got one hose with 2 outlets coming off. One to go off that way to the header tank and one to go to there. So that was, other than buying 2 separate T-pieces, I thought that would be a nice neat solution. Can sit in the top hose, one can go off one way, one can go off the other. So obviously we weld them that way round, so they go off at opposite directions. So one that way, one that way. So I've got to get them cut and welded. You know you're wearing eye protection, don't you?
On my head?
Yes.
Yeah, why?
You don't need to protect your eyes at the moment.
No, you might have to though.
Finessing, I think the term is.
Right, they go in there. It's only the bottom bit, so I'll get 2 aroused by it. Might not even fit then.
Just a top bracket to go then. Looking good.
Don't look too horrendous.
Plumbed up all the hoses. As you can see, I've had that bit welded up, as you can see. So it's the double pipe cut and then welded. So we've got a take-off for the header tank and a take-off for the turbo. We've got the water return into the lower rad hose. Obviously the lower rad hose comes out of here to the rad, and that's the top of the rad there. Intercooler. So eventually maybe we'll get a charge cooler. A front mount intercooler just wouldn't fit. I trimmed the bumper behind. Obviously the rad has been moved out as far as it can go to clear the turbo. So even with the bumper back on, it only just clears the rad. So we've got no chance of an intercooler without having it hanging out, and I didn't really want that. So we thought we'd give this a go. A Land Rover 300 TDI intercooler. I've got loads of these in stock, so it was a cheap one to try. Now we've got good airflow out to the wheel well, so it should suck some air out. We're going to cut this out so air will go straight in with a hole in the bumper. Obviously get air around the headlight, etc. So I'm hoping that will be sufficient. If not, we'll have to go charge cooler, but it was worth a try before investing loads of money. So obviously they're not clamped down straight or anything yet, but pipe from the turbo across there to the intercooler. Then I've got, hang on, I've got this. So that goes there, like so. Obviously we'll trim that down a bit. Then there'll be a 90 there, well, probably a joiner and a 90 Yeah, so that will sort of go up there with a joiner or something like that. And then we've got this bit here. We should be able to sort something with that. And then, yeah, so it's not a lot of boost pipage. Yeah. So Mikey made me some mounts up, as you saw. So that one's bolted there. I need to sort the bolts out. They're just temporary bolts just to get it in there. So that sits in there. That bracket is there, and obviously is also another mount for the ECU. So he is good at fabrication, his old Mr. Mikey. So yeah, I'm hoping, because that's such a nice bracketry, that will be good. Obviously we'll powder coat those brackets now they're made. Just got to drill the holes to mount the other side of the ECU. So yeah, so we're not actually that far off with this now. Now that all the plumbing's done, we've got to obviously tidy those mounts up, cap them, paint them up, cut that hole out for the intercooler, and refit the bonnet, etc. Sorry, the bumper and the wings, etc., and headlights. And then we should be not far off, really. Right, I got back on the Metro for a couple of hours, got the front wings back on. I've drilled a couple of holes there in that panel, and then obviously I'm going to cut with the angle grinder around. It's just to give it a radius edge all the way around. And then we can put the headlights back in. I've connected the brake lines up. The boost hose is almost there. I've just got to get a little joiner for that elbow there. Almost lines up, a little bit more trimming to do, but it's nearly there. And then we can get it back on the floor and get the front end on. So moving on. Right, there we go. The hole's cut out. Give us plenty of airflow up to the intercooler once the bumpers had a little chop as well. So yeah, now it's time to get the headlights back in. Start building it back up. Right, well, I've started trying to fit the Aerocatches. I've made my measurements and marked it out. So we're going to cut the bonnet out now and get this one in, and then we've got to try and replicate the other side. So here we go. There we go. This in. There we go. Sorted. Now it's got to replicate it on the other side. Joy. Well, we've got the Aerocatches on, and they work just about. Need to do something about that. Probably need to get some gas struts or something. There we go. On, flush, and almost symmetrical. Just need a little bit of persuasion to get it open again. There we go. Obviously need to paint the inside of the bonnet where I've cut them, but we'll get round to that at some point. I think the whole bay's got to be painted anyway. Next job, a proper original Mac 3-port boost controller. The original one is prone to failure apparently, so we're going to stick this on and put it somewhere. I don't know where yet, but I'll find it. It's got 2 mounting holes, so I'm sure we can find somewhere to put it. So that's the next job. Right, I've plumbed it in for now, temporarily. I've attached it to there, just to so it's up and visible for the time being. I've used the original vacuum hoses to the turbo and the wastegate or actuator. Eventually I'll change them when I come back and redo all the engine bay. Once we know it all works. I've wired it up. Luckily I had the right plug for the loom. You probably can't see that, but so I've wired that in, so it's all good. We can junk the old one because they're notoriously unreliable apparently. So now we just need that hose joiner for the boost pipe. Oh, something else. I had this plugged in originally on the loom, to this plug because it was in the right place. Turns out that wasn't the right plug. There should be a second coolant temp sensor on that elbow. That one is for the ECU and this one is for the dash gauge. So I need to sort out a new elbow. You can get them from various other K series that have both the sensors in there. So joy, something else I need. So yeah, that I need the joiner. Whack the rad in. These still need capping off at some point, but at least we can put the rad in, chuck some coolant in once that elbow's on, and run it up and see how it goes. And then it's a matter of bleeding the brakes up, sorting the exhaust out, and then finally test driving it. And then once it's test driven, we can bring it back in and clean it all up and tidy everything and check for leaks and whatever have you. Obviously this is just a dry run at the moment just to make sure it all works and functions, and then we can tear into it and sort it all out. So I think right, so another job I need to do is change fuel pump. Now when I fitted the VVC and I had all the underside out and the tank out, I made this plate up. I cut a hole in the floor, I made this plate up so in the future if I ever needed to get to the sender or the pump, I could take that plate out and get to the top of the tank without having to drop the tank each time. So we need to take this off, get the MPI fuel pump out that was used for the VVC, and put in a new, this one here. I can't even remember what this pump is, but it was the one I was recommended for the turbo. I can't remember who makes it. So yeah, so I've got to pop that cover off, get the top of the tank or the sender unit out and change the fuel pump. So that's what I'll do now. Right, so that's with the plate removed and you can see perfect access to the fuel pump. So I've just got to undo those 10mm nuts and then that will reveal the fuel pump. Right, these are 6.5mm nuts, and I haven't got a 6.5mm, so pliers I'll have to do. Right, well it's back in. I haven't tidied it up yet. I'll put it back properly because I want to check it runs first and sucks fuel up and whatever. You saw me putting a couple of hose clamps on it because although it was advertised as a direct swap, it was a bit loose in the housing, so I thought a couple of hose clips will stop it going up and down, and obviously try and stop the connections moving, because the last thing you want is any sparks in the fuel tank. So yeah, so I've redone a couple of connections, put it in there, so fingers crossed. We'll have to see if it works. Right, next job, well, last but not least of today, is the air filter. That was the one I was running the VVC, just about fits in there onto the turbo, pretty perfect. So we started off with an uncramped bay and we've now got a full bay again, so but at least we've got an air filter, so another job ticked off. So it's just a matter of getting that rad on now. This video, I'll order these bits, get it all back together, and then in the next video hopefully we can start it up and drive it out the door for a test drive. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe and share, and you'll see me soon in more videos.